This is Crash Canon. I'm Chris, and we got to start with this, obviously. So there we go. All right, got the DSE Ray right here. And which one? You got the Second Amendment, right?
I've got the Second Amendment, Chris.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Actually, that was the first one I think I had, and I really enjoyed that one. So if you want to just jump right in and tell everybody who you are, I don't think you need an introduction, but we'll go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am Trevor Alcorn. I am the co-founder of Tridentine Brewing with my father and my brother Cameron, Father Jeff, I should say. So yeah, just helping out with this. It was kind of a family endeavor. Well, it is a family endeavor, but it was something really organic we just decided to do as a home brewing fun adventure about 12 years ago. And it's grown into what it is now. And of course it's commercial now. So it's definitely very, very exciting, a little bit surreal that it's, at this stage. I didn't really envision it being quite like this, but it's been great so far. So wherever God wants to take it, we'll go with it.
I got to let you know, I was at a local liquor store in my county and I showed them pictures of your guys' stuff. And he was like, the second this is available in our area, I'm getting some. So I'm just letting you know.
All right. Well, I'll be very happy when we can break into Michigan. Michigan is, it's right next door, but they're also very protective of their local craft breweries. So they kind of put the barriers a little bit high, not insurmountable, but hopefully we should be able to break into Michigan at some point soon.
Yeah, he was going through there's a lot of layers to that. So you guys are based in Wisconsin. That's accurate. And
yes.
How does that all work? So you guys had to get a license in Wisconsin first, right?
Yeah. So we did. So we live in Illinois. It's brewed in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And so the Wisconsin part was a bit easy because we're able to use the license of the contract brewery that's brewing they're brewing our homebrew recipes up there.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it's actually a brewery that has their own Catholic beers too. So it's really cool. They love the idea and the partnership. But yeah, so that part was relatively easy to get the Wisconsin part going. Wisconsin, unsurprisingly, if you've ever seen a map of the U.S. with beers per capita,
Wisconsin's pretty high on the list.
Well, yeah, Wisconsin's number one for sure. And so their alcohol laws in general are very friendly towards business, and so that part was easy enough. It's just a lot of the other states that tend to be difficult. It's not necessarily that they're all difficult, but each has their own set of laws. I usually like to say that it's really one of the best, or maybe the only forms of federalism left, where each of the states is actually deciding their own laws. It's not totally federalized. There is a federal aspect of it, but it's definitely largely left up to the states. And so a lot of prohibition laws, or at least laws that were put on the books right after Prohibition, in many cases have just largely been unchanged. And so that's where it becomes a bit difficult. And so, yeah, we want to get into Illinois. I mean, we live in Illinois. It's funny, we can't sell the beer here. So we want to get down here, and then we want to continue to expand throughout the Midwest, hopefully beyond the Midwest, of course,
as well. But you can't even sell from your home brewery in Illinois?
No, we can't. Yeah. So we don't have, we've been working on the Illinois license now for a while. So long story short, with Illinois, I don't want to bore everyone half to death with
with laws
legalese and red
that,
tape. Yeah. But in order to get a license for Illinois, we had to get a federal license. So we put in for a particular federal license. The federal government, it's just a piece of paper. It doesn't have to go through a committee or anything. Put it in. They sat on it for 4 months. I mean, it's just an approval. That's all we need. They finally approved it after 4 or 5 months. There's nothing you could do.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there is a wink and a nod if you know the right person, but there's nothing that you can actually do about it. And then it went to Illinois' Liquor Control Commission, and then for a few months, and then they turned around and said, well, we don't like the way that you filed it, because we need a distribution license really for the state,
Okay.
not even just like a brewing license. We need to distribute the beer we have from Wisconsin. So they said, no, refile it a different way. So now it's back with the feds again, and it's
Mhm.
their desk again, and then hopefully we'll get back to Illinois and it'll be approved, and then we can go from there. So
It sounds like Michigan's got some similar distributor laws to Illinois.
there is, and I think that there's even don't quote me on this, I could be wrong. I want to say even like some breweries and distributors have actually sued the state of Michigan because basically it's very protectionist. They're like, oh, this is like unconstitutional from a federal standpoint. I don't know that that's true, but like they're very much so. Michigan protects its home breweries, so they put up like additional barriers above and beyond the rest to kind of disincentivize. But I mean, there's a lot of really great local craft breweries in Michigan. Even on the western side, I mean, you've got Founders, you've got
Bell's,
Founders, Bell's. So New Belgium. So there's a lot. Not New Belgium. I'm sorry, New Holland.
Yeah, that's right. I was gonna say New Belgium. What are you talking about?
I was thinking Dragon's Milk. I was like,
actually,
Dragon's Milk.
A little bit of controversy. Bell's isn't even owned by anybody in Michigan anymore.
Oh, really?
It got bought by like this rich Dutch guy who lives in Australia. Yeah, so it's like the original owner of Bell's sold it, I think, in the last like decade. Okay. But before he sold it, I actually took my buddy for his bachelor party to like hang out at the brewery and then do a bunch of stuff in that area. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Got to see how the sausage is made. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool to see the process up front, especially at a scale like that.
So how did you so maybe we should start at the beginning. How did you guys get started on this? Like, what did you guys buy equipment first? Did you start doing like the little homebrew barrels? How did it start?
Yeah, it started really small with extract kits. For me and my father, and I mean it does go back further than that. So as far as I know, for brewers in the family, I'm sure there's probably brewers even way further back than this, but my great grandmother, she brewed in her bathtub in Chicago during Prohibition. So I do know that.
That's
I
cool.
got that story from my grandmother, who's also a brewer, and her husband. So my grandparents brewed together, and then they taught my father how to brew. And so they brewed together until my grandfather passed away in the late 90s. And then I was too young to be able to brew with my dad, so he kind of set it on the side for a while. And then in 2013 my parents were moving moving stuff out of their basement. I found all the old equipment and I said, yeah, Dad, what's all this stuff? And he said, oh yeah, it's from what me and Grandpa used to brew. And I was like, okay, well,
now we're gonna
teach me. Yeah, let's try it out, let's see how it goes. And so we did that 2, 3, 4 batches a year. It wasn't a whole lot. My dad was still working full-time at his day job. And so we did that for a few years, started to name some of them, but there was nothing like consistent. It was just, hey, let's just get together sometime, maybe on a Saturday, and brew out back. First it was on the stove in the kitchen. Then eventually we got a burner for the sidewalk. And then so we were able to brew beer on the sidewalk, or boil it at least. And so
you were doing it outside?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So is
there a reason you do it outside versus where you guys are doing it now? Is it just based on the equipment?
Yeah, it is based on the equipment. So we initially did it outside. So we made the jump from the kitchen stove to outside initially with our extract batches, because 2 reasons. One is it takes forever to boil on the kitchen stove, especially if you have a larger batch size. Even if it's 5 gallons, it just takes a long time. And then if you have a boil over, it goes all over the place. And so we did that. My wife was not very happy. Yeah, she wasn't very happy about that. So I was like, okay, let's just get like a nice propane burner for outside. And so that's what we did. It wasn't that much, like $50. Then we would throw it on the sidewalk and do it.
Those are very There's some very affordable ones. We had gotten one of those like a survival kit years ago.
Oh, nice.
Like a burner thing, whatever you want to use outside. Yeah, they're not terribly expensive. So that's a good way to.
It's good. So if anyone wants to start out, you want to do extract brewing, which is like the most basic form of home brewing, then definitely I'd recommend that. And it just makes the process go so much smoother. It's not that expensive, and you don't have to worry about boil over. So it happens outside, no harm, no foul. Who cares about that? But anyway, fast forward. So we were doing that for a few years. And in 2018, my father said, "Oh, I'm going to retire next year." And so we thought, well, let's take it to the next level of home brewing. Let's go to all grain brewing. Let's upgrade the equipment. So we ended up buying a whole kit for doing all electric brewing.
Electric.
So it's a whole electric set. You can get burner sets as well. But we decided, okay, let's get the all electric set, and let's start from scratch with recipes. Let's get all the grains ourselves, so we could fully design everything. When you have extract kits, you're kind of at the mercy of whatever's in the extract kit.
Right.
For recipes, you could tweak things, you can add things in, like, oh, if I want to make this stout a chocolate stout, I can add cocoa nibs in there or whatever. But you're a little bit limited there. I mean, that's about as far as it goes in regards to variation. So thought, let's craft it all ourselves. And so we did. So we ended up putting it in my basement initially. I converted an old cistern. I have a Victorian house, converted it into a brewery, bought the equipment. We started that. At the same time, we decided, well, let's go ahead and let's name this thing. Like, we've been inconsistent with the names of the beers. We didn't actually have a name up until then for like the brewery part. We thought, hey, let's go ahead and do it. We went through about 30 different names initially, just like brainstorming. But we ended up going with Tridentine, and the reason for that is we wanted to make it more meaningful. There's a lot of breweries out there where it's named after a geographical location or just something silly. Doesn't really mean much. I thought, well, this is a good opportunity, even if it's just our own brewery. It doesn't go any further than that. It's just something we enjoy with family and friends. Let's make it a meaningful name, and then let's like brand it along a certain line. And so that's where we came up with Tridentine. Of course, Tridentine is in reference to the Council of Trent.
And it just invokes tradition. That word just automatically invokes some kind of tradition.
Exactly, Chris. I mean, I think for people who know what the word is, I mean, automatically, I think it comes to mind. And we didn't want to call it like the Catholic Brewing Co. because it's like, okay, it's a little on the nose, and there's also like canonical issues with putting Catholic in there can be canonical issues. With putting in your title. So
I went through that problem, FYI.
Oh,
okay. The original name of this show was Crash Catholic, but I never got the permission from either the bishop that left or the bishop that arrived at Detroit to call it Crash Catholic. So last minute, I had 2 C's in my logo. I was like, what the heck can I replace Catholic with? And we wound up with Canon. So it's Crash Canon.
Well, that's a great story, though. You've got a great story behind it. And hey, at least, but unlike another very famous or infamous Michigan Catholic outlet, at least you didn't have to be forced to change your name, which will go nameless.
I know exactly. A certain spinning theme to that channel, huh?
That's right. A little bit of a vortex there. Mm-hmm. So, but in any case, we went with Tridentine or Tridentine, whatever you want to call it.
I've even heard Tridentine. So
Tridentine.
That sounds almost German, but
yeah, we always called it Tridentine, and then a lot of people always correct us and say it's actually Tridentine. I was like, oh, okay, all right. So anyway, that's what we went with for the theme. I kind of like drew up real quickly. Oh, it's a logo, and I kind of put the initial logo after the miraculous medal, not in a oval format, but in a round format. And our saying, just to kind of like keep it focused, we went with brewing beer for the greater glory of God. And so just to always remind ourselves, what is it really that we want to be doing here? And so that was kind of the initial birth. Luckily, my brother Cameron, who's been involved from the very beginning, he is a graphic designer, a web developer.
There you go.
So he helped us come up with all the logos, and he helped us for all of our home brews, put together all the logos and all the graphic design.
Which these are
So
really cool, by the way. Like, I mean, I don't know if you guys got a good picture of this, but that's really neat.
It's amazing. And you know what? Those, and maybe I can talk a little bit about the design real quickly. The
and the labels, like the priest friend that I had come over, and we talked about this before the show, but there's a show coming out with a priest, a friend of mine, this week, where we talk about a little bit. But he noticed immediately, like, the texture to the label, it almost adds like a layer of grip to the beer, which is nice. I'm not sure if that was like intentional or not, but it's really neat that it's got like that extra layer to it.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. So just about the texture, there up until very recently, if you weren't going to do like a major massive order of these cans, the cans that you have your batch for, then you had to basically get like a wrap on it, you know, like some type of
like
plastic,
like what the Coke bottles have on them, that kind of
thing. Exactly. Like you're a little bit limited in regards to what you could do. But recently, basically, it's like printing that you can do as many or as few cans as you want. So that's basically what we do, and it does leave a nice, you know, texture to it that you don't get with the mass produced cans, because those are like very smooth. But this, to your point, it's nice. It's got like a nice texture to it. So I like it. I think more than if we had the mass produced. So that's been nice.
So is this technically a wrap then?
I don't know. So I don't know exactly how it's not a wrap.
Okay, because it feels printed.
It's definitely printed.
Okay.
Yeah, like print on demand type of a thing.
So does digital printing apply to like cans like this then too?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's sweet. I did not know. So like I know a lot about printing, but I've been researching digital printing because it seems like the here and now, if you want to print something, you do it digitally. Because the old school, I can't even offset is like so expensive, and you have to have such a high volume of production to do offset printing. It's just not really worth it for a small publisher or a small order of anything, really.
Yeah.
And then there's like the print on demand stuff, but digital's like hits that sweet spot in between print on demand and digital, and offset printing. And so if that's what you guys are doing, that's pretty neat. I didn't know you could do that with aluminum cans.
Yeah, and that's, to your point, exactly correct. Hey, Angela. Exactly correct. That's what we're doing. And so it's great that technology exists now, because otherwise I don't think the cans would look nearly as spectacular if we had to do some type of a wrap. I mean, the design that we have right now, the designer, I should say, for our commercial cans, Chris Lewis, does a phenomenal job. It would look great even if it was a wrap, but this is even better.
Yeah, these are really like I said, these are really cool. And I like that you guys add, like, not everybody does this, but you guys do. You got like a whole backstory to each of the cans. And that's something that we commented on this podcast coming out on hopefully Wednesday. We'll see. Either Wednesday or Thursday. But we literally sat there and we're like, the Cristeros, you got the backstory, you got the saint on there. He's holding a rosary. Like, you guys nailed it with that design. That's probably my favorite one of the 4 cans.
Yeah, it really is. Really is phenomenal, and I can't say enough of. And we work really, really well with Chris Lewis of Barrages Catholic on putting it together. But he's such a phenomenal artist. It's incredible. We're working with him because you give him a brief sketch of the idea that you think that you have in your mind, and they'll come back a couple days later with like this incredible design. You're like, wow, that's like a masterpiece. Like, it's basically, it looks like it's ready to go. And it's just like the first draft. And like, oh, I just put together a few things. Like, what do you think? It's like, I don't know, like the best thing I've ever seen. Like, I don't think I want to change anything. That's your first rough draft of it. And that's basically been all the cans that we've done with Chris. So he's been really great. So if anyone's listening and you don't follow Barrages Catholic, definitely follow him, because his work is simply incredible.
And you guys really couldn't have launched at a better time with like Bud Light burning itself down, you know? And the craft beer was kind of taking a downturn up until that, and then all of a sudden craft beer is like exploding off the shelves again because nobody wants to buy Bud Light after what they did.
Yeah, it's Bud Light really, I mean, that was pretty incredible. I don't know. It was a good like cultural like inflection point to kind of see it, and people just finally had enough and kind of coalesce and say, okay, that there's finally, I guess, a target that people could pick out. I think before it was hard because, you know, in a sea of rainbow, it's hard to know what to do. You know, like I know some people are very, very much, oh, I'm not doing anything. I won't order anything from Amazon. I mean, fine and fair enough. If that's where your convictions are. But at a certain point, it's hard not to participate in, I don't know, society without going to some store that, you know, supports something against, you know, the church or the faith and morals. So anyway, that's great. Hopefully Angela was saying I have the perfect voice for radio. That's not a commentary on my face for radio.
I was gonna say, usually people say you have a perfect face for radio, but
it could be. I mean, definitely not. The hair is definitely not there to be on TV.
The reason I wear the beanie, for the record, there's two reasons. One, if you've ever watched the podcast before, it's because my bald head shines like crazy, and it like disappears into the green screen, so it's like impossible for me to have my bald head on a stream. And secondly, because it gives me some level of anonymity, Clark Kent style.
Hey, that's good. I like it. You know, I'll have to keep that in mind if I ever do a green screen because, you know, luckily enough for me, I've got the bookshelves behind me, so it makes me look really smart, even though I've only read like a tiny fraction of the books. But it's great. But I will keep that in mind for afterwards. Oh well, no, Angela.
At least you're not trying to green screen, so you don't have to worry about it. Yeah. I saw what Angela's comment was. Grandpa used to joke she had the perfect face for radio.
Oh, I hope your grandpa was nice, Angela.
unless the joke is that her grandpa had the perfect face for radio, because that could be read either way.
That could be. We'll hope for that one.
And I just for the record, I do appreciate this comment. You know, we're gonna get Angela back on. Hopefully next time we'll be able to go longer because we had a lot of subjects Angela and I wanted to cover, and we just couldn't get to them because there's just a lot going on that night. Anyway. Tonight's about Trevor, though, and for the record, what is do you guys have a personal devotion to Blessed Karl of Austria? Because I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, Chris. We do. I mean, me in particular, but it's kind of branched out to the rest of the family, and so it really goes back to when I was in 2010. 2011, I decided to run for political office in my town, and so I decided to run for so I ran for village trustee, which is kind of like an alderman, a councilman. And so as I was in that process, which is an interesting campaign, I ran against the former mayor, got elected. No, I didn't put Icetown in or anything like that. I was pretty young. I was like 20 years old when I got elected.
That's impressive at that age, honestly. Like that can't be easy to get a political office at all when you're in your 20s.
Yeah, you know what? And I would encourage anyone who's listening, if you can, do stuff locally, because everyone's and always enamored with the federal everything, or even at a state level. But there's like so much that you can do at a local level.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
even at the state level.
Or I mean, that's a good point. Even at the state level, you can do a lot.
Because states still have rights they don't exercise. Like there's so much you can do. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
Tons. No, you're absolutely right. There's a good saying from the author Charles Coulomb, which is, it's the tyranny of the involved. Like your town, like the people who are involved are the ones who are making all the decisions, and usually it's like a small group that stays there forever. Typically because no one knocks them out because they're in, and then no one wants to do it, and it's not.
And then you receive a letter from the drain commission telling you that even though your elevation is higher than the drain, you got to pay for it.
Yeah, well,
personal experience with that one. Not me personally, but I know somebody that had that happen. So anyway,
that's where it's good to have reasonable people involved in the the elected local government.
Yes.
But in any case, in regards to Blessed Karl, as I was running, I thought, well, okay, let me look into like who's a good saint to pray for involved in politics. And even though I was a bit of a history buff, I didn't know a lot about Blessed Karl, even though I really loved reading about the world wars. But I happened to come across him, and I was just like really fascinated, kind of blown away by his story as I read more into him. Because when you read a story, it's like, well, is this kind of like a real person, especially someone who lived recently? Because I think you hear of like kings, queens of old, like St. Louis the Ninth or something like that. And it's like, oh, that's a long time ago. But what about, and that's all great. I'm not putting St. Louis the Ninth down or anything. But I was thinking like, okay, like recent examples in more recent politics, is there anyone out there? And Blessed Karl's story of being the last emperor of Austria-Hungary, kind of inherited the empire in the middle of World War I. And
that
really
is a crazy story.
Yeah, the whole story, even the story of him getting into power and kind of his path, like how improbable that was, is just an insane story in itself. And how he made it there with the line of succession between suicides and assassinations of different people in the royal family and other people dying off. Suicides. Oh yeah, I have a friend, Lucy Copeman. She's a historian on that Meyerling incident. Franz Joseph's son who committed suicide, or supposedly.
Yeah.
So it's just an interesting episode. But in any case, Karl is very fascinating, and just how, in many different aspects, one of which, of course, is relevant because of all the recent war talk, the conflict, the war between Iran and Israel, and the U.S. kind of joining in. Hopefully it's over now, but
hopefully we're just some kind of mediatrix and we're done.
Yeah, hopefully that's it.
Hopefully that's it, because I don't want
and that's it.
Not on my agenda for the next decade. That's for sure.
No. I think we've had enough of forever wars, so we can be over that. And certainly when Karl got in, he had enough, but he had enough at the beginning. I think one of his first addresses to really audience at at the palace that he was at when the war broke out was, like, yes, I'll support the empire, but you're not going to like war. It's a horrible thing. Like, we should end this as quickly as possible. I mean, he was saying that in 1914, but when he got into power, he took very seriously even Pope Benedict Pope Benedict XV's peace plan at the time, and really pursued it, doing a lot of back channel negotiations. Unfortunately, was not successful because there was a lot of secret alliances at the time that really prevented that. But he did what he could for his people and was willing to give up large chunks of land or whatever it took. But in any case, he ended up having to abdicate, of course, and was exiled. Made a couple of restoration attempts in Hungary, but was eventually exiled to Madeira, which is a Portuguese island in the Atlantic, and was there with his family. Unfortunately, he died really quite young, in his early 30s, and died a very holy, saintly death. But he's not just a great example of a political leader, but also as a father and a husband, because I think sometimes you get this really bad dynamic with like political leaders where it's like, yeah, this guy was a great leader, or was a great general politician or whatever on paper, and then his personal life is absolute disaster. Like,
well, like, even if you just look at the Bible with the prophet Samuel, both of his kids were terrible. Both of his sons, I should say. We don't know if he had any daughters or anything like that, but just there's so many examples of terrible leadership in the Bible.
Exactly, right? Like, you have a good king. I mean, David's another great example, right? Of that. Personal life is, and obviously he's
got some
a great
issues,
saint, but he's got his own issues in his life. But Karl was a very faithful husband, to Empress Zita. They had, I believe, 8 children, and his son was also a great statesman as well, the crown prince. But yeah, Karl and Zita, they're great examples, as well as I was mentioning, for married couples. Zita's on her own path to sainthood. So your original question to me, Chris, was what my devotion tie in and how's it tie into the rest of the family and the brewery. So I had this devotion, even named a couple of our children. One's a Zeta and one's a Carl.
Nice.
I have a
That's
boy and a
cool.
girl named after them. But when we did one of our very first beers after naming the brewery Tridentine, so it was like 2019, I said, you know what, we need to do a beer for Blessed Carl. So let's do a Blessed Carl beer. And what better beer than a Vienna lager, since that was the imperial capital. We'll pair that up with a Vienna lager. And so we did that. And afterwards, I reached out. So we brewed the homebrew batch. I reached out to the Gewürzliga. So that's the name of the Emperor Karl Prayer League. So they're like the official group that helps handle the canonization activities. Actually, they're founded like while Carl was alive to actually pray for him. Yeah, it's a really interesting story. There's sorry, I'll digress here for one.
No, you're fine.
There was a nun who I think she had a lot of mystical experiences in Austria in the late 19th century. And when Blessed Carl was a boy, she said, "Oh, like he's going to be emperor one day," and to the family, and he's going to go through suffer a lot of trials. And so basically his family got together and formed a prayer group in the late 19th century. Well, he was just a boy. And so that group carried on and ended up turning into the Gewürzliga and his canonization group. So really interesting story of the group itself, because it had to go underground for persecution against the Nazis, because the Nazis were looking at the registration because there was a lot of monarchists on it. So they had to burn everything. And they had the file on like all of his miracles and everything. And this is in the 30s. And even at that time, all of his miracles and everything, and they had to get rid of it. So they had to the prayer league had to start from scratch after the war was over, World War II, that is.
And that's not easy to do either.
No, yeah, to try and rebuild all that. So, but anyway, I sent it to that group. This is 2020 or 2021. Like, hey, this is a cool thing I'm doing. I just want to let you know about it. And they're like, oh, this is great. So the U.S. delegate, she said, oh, well, would you come out to Washington, D.C.? We're going to have a Blessed Carl Mass. And Archduke Edward Habsburg is going to be here, and he's going to talk.
Really cool.
Yeah, it was really good. She's like, can you bring the beer out? And would you like to give a talk on the beer with Edward, Archduke Edward, who's, of course, for those who don't know, he's the ambassador for Hungary to the Holy See.
To the Vatican, right?
Yep, exactly. And so I was like, okay. So we made a few batches of beer. We brought out to Washington, D.C. in fall of 2021, and they had the mass, had the event, the reception there, and so it was a really cool experience to share it with the Habsburg, the beer, Archduke Edward, and be able to talk with him about the beer. He presented Blessed Carl, and I sat at the table with him and talked about the beer, and it was a really cool experience. And that's kind of the start of the social media side of things, because that was like my first post on social media. I was like, okay, this is interesting. We finally have a few beers out. I'm going to just put it out there to see what people think of the concept. My father especially had no plans on doing anything commercially. He retired from his day job. He was like, I'm doing this for fun. That's it. But I was like, yeah, I'm going to see what the reaction is. And at the very least, see what people's interest level in like an idea like this is. And also just kind of encourage people to do like more like Catholic themed things, not just in beer, but just in general, just like an encouragement. And I mean, the rest is kind of history. It just kind of grew from there, the interest level. And I mean, what's fascinating about just the social media side of things and getting the story out there is that I think the account grew to like 15 or 17,000 followers on X without selling a single commercial beer, which is fascinating because most commercial breweries don't have a following like that. And it's always been funny talking with distributors or other grocery stores or chains or whatever, that even when we were on the verge of trying to take it commercial, so when we were getting feelers out there, it was just like something that blew away distributors. when we would talk with them, they'd be like, what type of
You have
following
that
do you
many
have?
followers? That's
You didn't sell any
amazing.
beer? Like, no, we didn't sell any beer yet, but like there is a desire for this type of, it speaks to people, just that, hey, here's a beer, here's a company that I don't know, doesn't hate me or my values or my beliefs. And so it really does speak to people, and there's a hunger out there for it. So that's what I think it really shows at the end of the day, is that there is a market for something like this. And so that's been immensely helpful. So thank you to anyone who's listening, who's a follower or has been following us on social media, because I think you're, besides from our Lord, of course, who's been kind of, and Our Lady, who's been kind of the inspiration, that's really helped kind of drive the decision making on this. Because obviously there's no interest. We would just keep on brewing it at home and wouldn't have done anything more. But just having that reaction from people, which is also translated in the commercial side of things, people making like beer pilgrimages to go to
Beer
stores.
pilgrimages. That's amazing.
It's a real thing. Like, people come from states away to go get the beer. And what's funny is stores we'll tell this to some stores, like, there's gonna be people that are going to come, and like, if you build it, they will come. People will come and get this. People, sometimes the liquor manager at the store or the owner is like, yeah, whatever. Like,
And then people show up.
And then people show up and like wipe them out.
You guys
So
need to
we'll
have
get,
a
like, small-
Jubilee beer for the
A
pilgrimages.
Yeah.
You guys got something with
that'd be
Mary
really
on it, right? Isn't there like the whole, like, if you do a pilgrimage for one of the Mary shrines or whatever, you get like extra indulgences for the year? Isn't that what Pope Francis set up?
Yeah, you know what? I wish I could comment on that specifically. I'm on the exact indulgence time.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
But that would be good. And and I'd really love to continue to branch out into like more and more themes, and hopefully it continues to be a commercial success, and we can have more and more beers. Since we don't have a tap room and we're not like constantly switching out the beers, it's like, it's a very, usually when we go in, it's like a very, very conscious, calculated decision on, okay,
Sure.
we're going to launch this and this is going to stick around for a while. So which one's it going to be? But I'd love to get to that point where we're like, have some seasonal beers, and then we're able to like rotate out some of the themes. I think that would be great, because I really want to get into more and more themes and more stories that we're able to tell.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do you guys sell those magnets on your website? The Blessed Carl Austria?
We do, yeah, we do.
I had a couple of people ask me about that. They saw it on my fridge.
Yeah, so we do have some Carl and Zeta magnets and some other items related to them, some like woodworking items. My wife's cousin, he has a woodworking shop, so we commission some things like coasters and ornaments and things like that. So yeah, definitely check out our merch store.
I'm gonna drop a link in here. I'm gonna find it real quick. But in the meantime, so I'm assuming you were always Catholic. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I'm cradle Catholic. Don't hold that against me, anyone. I did go to
same
Catholic.
here.
I did go to Catholic school all my years, but it was homeschool. So
Catholic homeschool is the best, guys.
Catholic homeschool is the best. What can I say? But yeah, I was Catholic growing up. But my father, he was not. So
he wasn't.
My father was not. So it's my mother's side of the family that's the Brewers. So he married into a Catholic family, and when they got married, he agreed, okay, I will raise the kids Catholic. He was kind of he's raised Protestant nominally. Protestant. Okay. I mean, my grandmother is very strong in her faith, and but for him, it wasn't. My father, that is, it wasn't very important for him growing up, and he was fine with the kids being raised Catholic or whatever. If he had to go to a mass, like, fine, but he was not going every Sunday. And finally, it got to a point where I think I was like 6 or 7 years old, and I told my mom one day, like, why is Dad not going to church with us? And like, oh, she gave some reason. I was like, we got to tell him that if he doesn't go to mass, he's going to hell. it's mortal sin to miss mass, and he's going to hell. So we better tell him, Mom. And so my mom said, Trev's a little worried that you're going to go to hell. So I don't know. I think you should go to mass with us. And my father's like, yeah, well, whatever. He's like, I don't think so. And she's like, well, but he said, you know what? We're going to put this to bed. He's like, I'm going to research and show you why you're wrong about the church. And then we'll settle this once and for all. And my mom said, okay, that's fine. But you have to use Catholic books to say how it's wrong. And she said, fine. So he started doing his research, started researching, church fathers and others, and St. Francis de Sales, and I think in Catholic Controversies by St. Francis de Sales, as he was reading that, and I think it really struck him that, I think he's onto something here.
Maybe a little bit.
He might be onto something. So I think intellectually he started to see it, and then, but he'd go to mass, at a local parish, and he'd be like, I'm not really seeing it here. He's like, what I'm reading about, the church I'm reading about and the church I see at the local parish is really not the Catholic church I'm reading about. There's a disconnect here. So that for him initially, that was kind of a barrier, especially like the reverence side of things. He wasn't seeing. He's like, yeah, he really believed it.
Like, what year are we talking?
We're talking like late 90s.
Late 90s. So you're like under 10 at this time?
Yeah, I was 7.
Okay.
I was giving him a hard time about going to
I was
hell.
gonna say, because my kids are all 10 and under, and they see things black and white like that. They're like,
yep.
they will sit there and like logically be like, well, this person doesn't go to church, so like they're going to hell, essentially. Like that, they think those things through because they know,
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They don't see the gray like we do as adults, and I don't really see the gray as much anymore as I used to. It's like that you unlearn that. I feel like the more Catholic you get.
Yeah, and obviously it's good to have the gray, and I wouldn't,
for some things,
but I think that there's definitely a point to be had that where children see things as black and white, where adults like to see things as gray, where it's like, no, I think we should see that as black and white. Actually, it is black and white.
Yes.
So
in most cases, there's a
from
right objectively and a wrong objectively.
Exactly.
In most cases.
Yeah, but you're right. And as I have children, all my children are, I have 5 children. They're all under 10. And I know exactly what you're talking about. They will just say exactly what they think. And it's very black and white. But yeah, so my father, he researched the faith. And again, he wasn't seeing it at the local church. And so I was kind of holding him off, especially the reverence and like what he saw as like disbelief in the Eucharist. That like if you really thought it was the real presence and you'd act like it, and not talking to my mom specifically, but just other Catholics, he wasn't really seeing that as like, so that was
isn't that crazy? Like how much lack of reverence can affect somebody's faith?
Yeah.
Like I think it was Father David Michael Moses. It was the first priest I heard talking about this on a YouTube video. He basically said, if you want more priests, then us as lay people need to show reverence to the Eucharist.
Yeah. Exactly. I think that you need that. That
was when I started kneeling for communion. I saw that video. I started kneeling for communion, no matter where I'm at.
I'll get on you, Chris. I think it's true, right? That's like a broader quote for the liturgy in general, but law of prayer is the law of belief. How we're going to interact with the liturgy and
lex
prayer.
Credendi, lex orandi, is that
lex orandi, lex credendi.
I said it backwards, but I said it backwards. You had it right.
You're right. Hey, I took Latin in high school, so
fair enough. I did not.
But I have plenty of gaps, so don't test me on my Latin. But in any case, that you're right. It's a hurdle for people. I think it's more of a hurdle than we like to think it is for people, because I think people will logically be there in the faith, in their journey, and then if they don't see other people acting it out, or what they think is acting it out, then it's kind of like, well, if no one else believes it, logically it might make sense, but clearly no one else takes it seriously, so why should I take it seriously? But things really changed for him when he went to actually a parish up north in Chicago. Some of your readers or listeners might be familiar with St. John Cantius in Chicago, and
It sounds familiar.
yeah, well, if you saw a picture of it, you definitely recognize it. It's one of the first like really big traditional Latin Mass parishes
I've only
in the
been to
city.
Chicago a couple times in my life, but I've only been to Mass in Chicago once in my life.
Okay. Well, you know what? You're going to have a new goal, Chris, because the next time you go, you have to go to St. John Cantius. There, I mean, Chicago has so many beautiful, beautiful churches, but St. John Cantius is right up there, and the canons regular that staff the church, they do a phenomenal job. Not with just the traditional Latin Mass, but they've also got the Novus Ordo. That's very so like the Latin Mass, you'd have a hard time
tell much of a
distinguishing.
difference.
You would not be able to tell the difference. So he went up there for the All Souls Day. So my grandfather and
that would
specifically,
be cool.
Yeah, it's an amazing Mass. It's a Mozart Requiem Mass.
Oh boy,
that they put on
awesome.
it. Yeah, you should make a trip just to Chicago just for that. I would say it is totally worth it, actually. And he went up for that with my grandfather and my now uncle-in-law. So my wife's now wife's uncle. He went up there, who's been instrumental in our whole family, also like going to the Latin Mass. And so my father went up there, and like as soon as he saw the church and the music started, he was in awe. I think it brought some tears to his face, and he was like, and just the reverence that he saw there was like, I think everything kind of snapped into place for him there. And so that's really kind of what he calls the mass of his conversion. That's actually why we've got Dies Irae here on the can.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah. So that's the whole tie-in from that particular mass for his conversion. So of course you got the casket there and the candles. That's like exactly what it looks like at St. John Cantius for their Requiem Mass. They've got the casket there and everything. If it's for a particular person, it's not, of course.
That's
for that
crazy.
Particular Mass, but
That's cool.
it's great, like phenomenal. The music, everything, the experience, and so that really kind of sealed it for him. And so he became Catholic in the early 2000s. I think it was like 2000 or 2001. He came into the church. So that's a story. So my father Jeff, our brewmaster, he's a convert.
Well, it's funny. Like I think converts and reverts usually have some of the strongest faith, but then you have some cradle Catholics that actually like hold to the faith well. Like obviously, I wouldn't question you, but there's a lot of cradles that don't. Like, a lot of lukewarm cradles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and and honestly, I can't blame too many of the cradles for. I mean, it's just
catechesis that I went through is terrible. Like,
yeah,
honestly, like, no offense to the people that were running it, but the material, the amount of time we had, the rushing through the sacraments, it doesn't work well.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. So, I mean, if that's what people are getting exposed to, they're getting rushed through it. And I feel bad. Yeah, that's right. One of the comments
There's
about
4 Novus Ordos on a Sunday.
Oh yeah. They usually have like 5 or 6.
That's
masses.
wild. How many priests do they have at the church?
Oh man, they've got more than 10. Because it's an order. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. All right.
So, and then they also have a few churches down in the Diocese of Springfield, Illinois, with Bishop Poprocki. So
for anybody who's listening on audio, the comment says, unfortunately, due to Cardinal Supich, on Sunday there are 4 Novus Ordo masses, 1 low mass and 1 high mass at St. John Cantius. In case anybody's listening and not watching.
Yeah, it's something Cardinal Supich put in place for the last 4 years after Traditionis Custodes came out from Pope Francis. He said, Cardinal Supich, that is, that St. John Cantius could be the only church in the archdiocese that can have the traditional Latin Mass, except for on Easter, Christmas, and the first Sunday of the month. So you'll have this. Yeah, and he said, "Oh, this is for unity in the church, so we're all celebrating the same liturgy on these days." It's like, well, I mean, there are other liturgies like Byzantine and all
Yeah.
the other 20 plus
Well,
different
technically,
liturgies.
the Dominicans have their own liturgy. The Franciscans have their own liturgy. The Augustinians have some special parts of the liturgy for themselves. Like all the orders have their own. So it's like the fact of the matter is that saying you can't do it because of unity is insane.
Exactly. Yeah, that's not exactly the mark of unity in the church. Is
Really,
everyone
Latin
saying
is kind of a unifying language.
it is a unifying language? I mean, certainly.
It's language
So
of the
that is
church.
important.
Like
Exactly. It's very important, but so I don't know where. Sorry, I got us way off track there, but you're right. The formation of the youth. I mean, Catholics, whether it's Catholic school or it's just local faith formation at parish. I mean, that's why it's so vitally important, I think, for parents to be involved, because I think there's like this general thought in society in particular, but like it's just the teacher, it's the priest at the parish, it's whoever's running faith formation at the parish or the Catholic school or wherever. Like
parents
they're going to
just
teach
want
my
to drop their
kids.
kids off and forget about it. Like that
Yeah.
was kind of the attitude with school, catechism, or any other organization that like Boy Scouts, like drop the kid off and let them, don't worry about it. I'm not saying my parents were like that, but most parents were like that.
I think most are, and
that was the culture.
Yeah, and I hope that it's changing. I think it slowly is changing, right? I mean, even in the uptick of people, for example, just homeschooling is a good example of that. Where
there's a lot of homeschooling these days.
Are seeing, it's just the uptick's been pretty crazy. Whereas a lot more niche when I was being homeschooled, and now it's just more widely accepted. The numbers have like tripled or quadrupled since the time I graduated high school. So parents, and not that someone has to homeschool to take an interest in their child, of course not.
No.
But I think that you are seeing that more of an interest there. But really, that an interest in your child's education, and specifically the religious education, I think is key and crucial. And then especially for fathers too, actually leading prayers, whether it's rosary or other prayers, but going to mass on Sunday, helping with catechesis in the home. I mean, I think that's key. And if that's not there, then I think it's an uphill battle for kids to stay in the church.
Yeah, I'm really bad at being like a what's the word? A parent who's just watching things. So I tend to get involved in anything my kids are doing. I'm like,
that's good. It's better to be over involved than under involved.
There's like a Troops of St. George close to where I, Troops of St. George is?
I do. Yep.
Yeah. So like, there's one of those down the road from me, and I just couldn't help myself. I was like, my buddy runs it. And I'm like, I got to help out. So give me some of these kids. I'll instruct for whatever age group you want. I really don't care. And so he's like, here you go. you can take these, the kids that are your kids' age. And I was like, all right, sweet. That sounds good. So I ended up with the youngest kids. We're a little hiatus, but we're probably going to bring it back in the fall. We'll see how it goes. But I thought that was cool. The Troops of St. George.
That is great. And I'm glad that there's like a Catholic version. I mean,
the Boy Scouts are not very Catholic anymore. Even the ones that allegedly are Catholic anymore. Like, it's just, and for the same reason, I think that the Boy Scouts are having issues. So are we having issues with the altar serving in the non-traditional parishes, because most of the time when I go to a Novus Ordo Mass, most of the servers are girls, which is the opposite intention, I think, for having boys on the altar. Yeah,
I mean, it's bad for a lot of reasons, but I think that, I mean,
yes.
Obviously it's confusing for boys and for girls, because I think girls walk away and they're like, well, why can't I do more? Like now they think that there's like some type of like artificial layer between them being able to be a priest or a deacon, when it's like, it's not artificial. It's a very real metaphysical reality. But then for the boys, it's like, okay, then it's just that it's not really.
Well, anytime a group that was primarily or exclusively boys allows girls in, usually the girls outnumber the boys within a few years. It always happens that way. Oh, here we go. You got a shout. You not a shout out. You got a fan here.
All right, Majorian. Hey,
There you go.
you have to have the weightlifting champ on someday.
He is. He's scheduled.
All right, nice.
I've got him and all the Gen Z guys that I enjoy the tweets of. Some friends of mine like New Crusade, Majorian. They're all coming out at some point.
Great,
but. All right, here we'll do a quick little Tridentine. I'm pronouncing it even weirder.
Call whatever you want. Everyone calls it something different.
I'm going to read the back of the can here so everybody can hear it. All right, so the back of this one right here. I've got another one, second one. We're going to do 2 tonight. It says, attaining peak darkness, the syrupy imperial stout has hints of coffee and a pleasing hop aroma. Dies irae, day of wrath in English, brings to mind the final judgment at the end of time and the corresponding 4 last things: death, judgment, heaven, and hell. May we use this healthy reminder of our end as a motivation to rightly order our lives towards God, and as a reminder to pray for the repose of the souls of those who have gone before us. As you drink this fine beer, say a prayer for the souls in purgatory, they may be released from their sufferings. Do you have a prayer on the top of your head you want to say, since I just read that? And I'm like, oh boy, I probably should have read that.
Yeah, I mean, my go-to is the Hail Mary. So
okay,
as long, did you want to say it now?
Sure, but are you going to do it in English or Latin? Because I'm prepared for the English. I'm not prepared for the Latin.
Let's do the English, because guess what? Someone asked me, they said they just started doing it on a podcast before, and I was rusty on the Latin, and I failed epically. I was like, take away my trad card, because I failed on saying the Hail Mary in Latin. Our Father just fine. Hail Mary, not so much. But yeah, or whatever. If you want to say one at the end, we can't for souls.
Either way. But so here's, and maybe this is a good teaching moment as far as like kids in prayer. Anytime I pass a cemetery in my car, my kids just break right into eternal rest, grant unto them, O Lord, and may perpetual light shine upon them. You know, that prayer. May their souls and all the souls of the faithfully departed by the mercy of God rest in peace. Amen. They literally, every time we pass a cemetery. So, you know, Protestant, Catholic, doesn't matter. They are praying for those souls. And hopefully some of them are receiving graces from it, because my kids, like, they will never let us pass a graveyard or a cemetery without saying that prayer.
Man, what a great habit to instill. And I need to take a page out of your book, because that's
my wife. My wife growing up. So my father-in-law instilled that in my wife, and now I do it too. But that was a harder learning as an adult than as a child.
Yeah, I think when you've got it instilled, I mean, my parents would do like at like certain points, like we'd get past a certain stop sign, like when we'd be driving a car or something, like when we get that stop sign, we're praying for this person, this person, this person. So I'd be like ingrained, like, all right, we're saying the 5 Hail Marys or whatever for the repose of so-and-so soul and so-and-so soul. And but I need to incorporate the graveyard, because I think that would be really good to do it young, get it in the brain.
Well, like, for example, I've been teaching my boys the Angelus, because I didn't have that growing up.
Yeah,
and that's a great prayer to, because it's very simple, but it's very profound.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I love, like I didn't even know what the Angelus was growing up. Like that's my catechesis. Let's put it that way. So like when I got older, and I've been reading like books where they occur during the time period where the bells would just go off. Like, okay, it's the Angelus time. You know what I mean? Yes. And I was like, what the heck is the Angelus? You know, I'm like a 20-year-old. I have no idea what the heck the Angelus is. And so I had to look it up. And now in my 30s, I'm finally like, I can pretty much say the Angelus without having to look it up anymore at this point. You know, it's just three different parts of scripture that have like the Hail Mary in between. The only thing I still haven't memorized is the prayer you say after the Angelus. And I just, you know, at the end,
yes,
that one I'm still stumped on. I got to look it up every time. But other than that, I can do the Angelus all the way to that point, memorized now at this point. Thank God. But
better than me, Chris. I need to do that. I need to do a better job of that.
Well, I guess what I mean is, like, so as cradle Catholics, and my kids are cradle Catholics because, you know, obviously I'm raising them a Catholic. We can instill that in them, so they'll have that memorized from birth, not from birth, but from early ages, and they could have that the rest of their lives. Like, imagine being able to give that to somebody.
Yeah, I fully agree. Like, yeah, just having that routine, having that ingrained, that memorized, I mean, you're right. Like putting someone, I mean, I contemplate on that too a little bit, certainly on my father's story, but others that I hear about where it's like, I'm very grateful that I was able to have that formation up front and not necessarily have to go through, even though I think it's obviously it's great to go through the discovery and everything, but that's just a lot to like take in. And it's like learning everything, like your whole faith formation, like having it like rebuilt and, even from scratch for some people, or have to unlearn things. And so, yeah, it's absolutely critical. You're right. Like if you can instill those things in your children up front now and kind of set for life in a way.
Yeah, because imagine like you're in your 20s, you don't have to look up any of these prayers. You know them by heart, and you know what they mean, in context, what you're doing. Like that's a big deal. Like memorizing prayers is one thing, but like memorizing prayers and understanding them is a totally different thing. Like I memorized the Nicene Creed growing up. I could say it without having, like, I probably couldn't say it on the spot, so don't test me. But I go to church on Sunday, I can say the Nicene Creed no problem. You know what I mean? And but I never really like took a step back and said, okay, what do each of these phrases mean? And now as an adult, I'm doing that. I'm like, but it's here. I don't have to look it up. And so I just have to think about it, and you can kind of meditate on that. And that's actually kind of cool that exists, that you can do that, recall these things from memory and then sit there and think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where were we at? I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You did the Catholic homeschool growing up. So are your kids homeschooling too then, or do you have them at Catholic school, or what's the game plan?
Yeah, so they're being homeschooled. So my wife was homeschooled. Actually, me and my wife from the same. I've known my wife since like 8 or 9. We weren't married at 8 or 9. Don't worry.
No, same though. I've known my wife since we were about 8 or 9 years old. Nice. Not homeschooled, but yes.
Yeah, so I was best friends with her brother. That uncle that I was telling you about that introduced all of the family to the Latin Mass, reintroduced my grandparents to Latin Mass, so he introduced he was working at the hospital in respiratory therapy with my mother, and so he introduced my mom to my now mother-in-law. Said, "Oh, if you're doing homeschooling, you should meet my sister," and so. My mother, she's a phenomenal artist, actually. Does a lot of paintings, restores statues and everything. And so she'd host an art class every week. So
that's we would do that. Just pause right there. That is a super important talent that the church is in desperate need of, with lots of statues kind of falling into disrepair, discoloration, et cetera, et cetera. So shout out to your mom. That's awesome.
I don't say like, oh yeah, she's an artist, and they like look and be like, just keep those statues at your home. No, she's like a very good artist. Like she's done it for a lot of churches, and so it's very important. Anyone who, and there's definitely a market out there. Like if you're a good artist and you can restore Catholic artwork or create Catholic artwork, there's a market for it. So definitely pursue it. We need more.
Yes.
Not just AI stuff. We need like real Catholic art, and we need that. But yes, she would do our class, and we would. That's where I really got to know my wife really well growing up. Teenage years, and even our parish that we were going to, Latin Mass parish in the 2000. It was an indult parish at the time. It was before Summorum Pontificum.
That's pretty cool.
And so so there's one in Central Illinois, and so we would go to the same parish, and the parish priest there, he would also like help stage like plays for the homeschool groups. So we did like a St. Thomas More play. We had like a Titanic play, and all these other things. The Song of the Carmelites, for example, for the nuns of Compiègne. So I was a French Revolutionary soldier. I got to execute my future wife, which is really great. She was a Carmelite. Did you
guys get pictures of this?
Yeah, I got.
That's awesome.
Of it. I'll have to find it. I'll have to share it on social media. So yeah.
Not everybody can say they executed their future wife as a child or a teenager, whatever age you were.
That's right. We had the full-blown guillotine we built for it and everything. I mean, it'd stick people's head in there, like, it was implied. Yeah. Like, we had the music, and like you'd hear the child really like actually let it go, and did go. I mean, it was fully fully functional, not with a real blade on there.
Right. Obviously not. Or your wife wouldn't be around anymore.
That's right. Yeah. We got to know her through that, and eventually started dating at the very end of high school, going into college, and so she got her degree in elementary ed. Not that anyone needs to get an elementary ed degree to homeschool, but it was always her plan. Like, when we get married, then I'll just also have that under my belt.
That's funny because my wife's got a secondary education degree.
Oh, okay, nice. Small world.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So that helped, but she did get pretty burned out teaching. Even her, you had to teach so much even when you're in college to get the degrry. You
gotta do like 6 months of student teaching or something.
Yeah, it kind of burned her out. Even seeing things like just the way that the school system, government school system, really handcuffs teachers and what they can teach, and just
my wife's got
some
some crazy stories from teaching in an inner city school in Michigan, up north of Detroit somewhere. I'm not going to name the school, but there was some crazy stuff going on in that school. There was a kid who had a rabbit in a locker at one point. Like, that's the kind of weird stuff that was going on up there. Yeah, well, that's as detailed as we'll get. But
yeah. Well, she saw experienced enough craziness stuff, and she was like, I'm not doing that. So she ended up working somewhere else. She ended up working at same company that I was working at, and eventually was able to stay home. She's a stay-at-home mom now, and doing full-time homeschooling with the kids. So second generation on homeschooling now. So it's great. I would highly recommend anyone that can do it. I know everyone can't do it, but I think it's great if you can swing that as a married couple, where the wife can stay home, and if you can also do the homeschooling thing, which I think more people can than what they think. I think a lot of people think of it as like very extraordinarily daunting. Not to say it's easy, but it's something everyone, I think, or vast majority of people can pursue. So it's great.
My kids are currently attending Catholic school, but we've always had in the back of our minds, if anything changes and we don't like it, we'll homeschool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at least the Catholic school down the road from us is actually very good. So for right now, that's where they're at.
And that's important, right? Because I think that there are some people like to rag on Catholic schools a lot.
To be fair, the way that the parishes are set up, the priest that's above our school is actually a TLM priest currently.
Oh, okay.
that may be, not to give too much away, but that's probably going to be changing. So say some prayers for him. But for right now, yeah, very traditional.
Hopefully that doesn't change. And that's great. And then it's also so great that we've got a lot more traditional leaning priests in the diocesan priesthood, and it's not kind of relegated to this thing with societies and fraternities. So that's great to hear. And I think like you're saying,
and he is the one teaching the religion class at the school for the kids, which is nice. So
that is nice.
My kids are getting a very, I would call it a first class education on religion from him. So it's very good. But yeah, anyway.
Well, and that's phenomenal, because I've heard of, and I know it's easy to kind of rag on the Catholic school system, and there still is a lot of problems. But there are some good ones out there.
There are definitely problems. There are at least three. Well, so let's say 3.5, because one of them's on like the border of another diocese. Anyways, there's like 3 or 4, if you want to count the 4th one or not, in the area we live in, Catholic schools. And what I would consider the most mainstream of the 3 probably has the most problems. I've heard some stories. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I'm personally, at least around here, for me, my area, I'm not exactly overwhelmed with the Catholic schools.
Overwhelmed, or you mean impressed? You're not impressed?
I'm not impressed. I'm underwhelmed.
Underwhelmed. There you go. Okay, that makes more sense.
So yeah, I'm underwhelmed with the
overwhelmed schools. Sounds like you're stressed out about the schools. Like, man, these schools are stressing me out.
Well, the cost of them would stress me out. I mean, it's like basically a college education
Yeah.
just to go to the local Catholic high school. The cost
the
of
local Catholic high school in my area is like $12,000.
yeah, I mean, it sounds about right. Sounds about similar. And I mean, I don't know how, if you have a larger family or even 1 or 2 kids, I mean, that's a lot of money a year.
I will give them just a little bit of credit. They cut off tuition at 10% of the provider's salary in the family. So let's say you've got 3 or 4 kids in the school, and I don't know if you're making, even if you're making 100,000, they'll cut the tuition at 10,000 because that's 10% of your salary, which I think is pretty admirable in this day and age. And there's a high chance our kids will go there, but if things, like I said, if things change, homeschooling is always there. My wife, I think my wife's one of the best teachers, period. So if we got to go to homeschooling, I have every faith that she will do a good job.
Yeah. And I think no matter what, I mean, obviously with homeschooling, you kind of have to be involved, although some people are not. It's not that it happens very, like with a lot of people, but I mean, no matter what, the important part is wherever your kid's going to school. I mean, if you're involved still as a parent, highly involved, and that's kind of the important thing, I think, for the success. I'm
pretty sure my wife's still technically employed as a substitute at the kids' school, so she's there pretty often, and often enough anyway.
Well, that's pretty awesome to just kind of be there anyway, and you can kind of oversee or know what's going on in the environment. So, but I'm glad to hear that about the Catholic school too. Like
it's like a small like farming and like blue collar community. So like it's pretty good. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Although I will say most of my close friends, they homeschool their kids. So we're kind of an oddball on that one. we're a bit of the we stick out a little bit.
Hey, whatever gets it done. And I think that, I mean, honestly, I think if there was a really great like local option for us, that would be something I'd really consider a lot more for the Catholic school.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then. You were homeschooled. Now your kids are homeschooled. Do you think that did you end up going to college or no?
I did, yes.
You did. Okay. So did you was that kind of a shock for you, or how well did the transition go with college?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. Everything I'm doing is like has home in it somewhere, like homeschooled, home brewing. So we went to a local university.
Okay. And and if you're in Illinois, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them in Illinois, right?
Yeah, there is. There's a few around us where I could have drove, but the local university, so it's the same university that Fulton Sheen went to.
Okay.
It was Catholic. It got bought out by the Nazarenes. So I know Nazarenes are big in the Midwest, but they're like a branch of Methodism.
No, there's a Nazarene church down the road from me.
Okay. Yeah.
So I know you're trying.
It's their big. It's like the Nazarenes like flagship. They've got a few universities in the U.S., but it's kind of like their flagship university. Olivet Nazarene University is the name of it.
Olivet, okay.
Olivet, yep. It used to be St. Viator's.
St. Viator's. Okay.
So there's a couple buildings still standing. I went to class in like one of the buildings that Fulton Sheen went to class in. And it's funny, in the library, they even have a picture of his transcript. They've got, it was like when I went there, it was very nondescript. It was like in a corner somewhere. It didn't even have a plaque. It was just like,
well, so was it Nazarene before or after you went there?
No, it's been Nazarene since 1939.
Oh, geez. Wow. Okay.
The funny thing is they left Olivet, Illinois. Here's a really funny side of the story. They established their university in Olivet, Illinois, which is to the south about an hour and a half. And they left in the 30s to come up here when they bought it. So the Viatorian order basically during the Depression went bankrupt, the Catholic college here. Mm-hmm. So they sold it to the Nazarenes. So they moved from Olivet, Illinois up to here, kept the name. The Catholics bought the old college campus in Olivet, and the SSPX runs it now. So the old Olivet campus is an SSPX. boarding school, and
That's
their whole
funny.
campus from the 30s, and so then they bought the one up here. But yeah, I went there. It was a bit of a, I mean, well, yeah, of course it was a little bit different. Not totally shocking because it's like very conservative.
The Nazarenes are still pretty conservative.
They're still pretty conservative, for sure.
Not perfect, but they're pretty conservative.
Yeah, I mean, it's like no Hillsdale or
Yeah.
anything like that. That's for sure. But it's also there's nothing crazy. You know,
Hillsdale's
right
not
here.
that far from me. If my kids were going to go to a college, that would be something on the list probably.
Yeah, you know, I know a lot of Catholic kids that have went there, or families that we know that sent their kids there that are Catholic. Always hear a lot of great things about Hillsdale, and I mean, I would consider it.
I want to say that's about maybe an hour and a half from my house, so it's not that bad.
Oh, okay. I knew it was in Michigan, so
yeah.
But so
I'd have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure it's only like an hour and a half from my house.
Okay. Oh, nice. Well, hey.
That's on.
Really
if my
close.
kids decide for some reason they think college is worth going to, that would be on the list of my approved like ideas of university.
Yeah,
for sure.
The list is small, and it's
very small. Sadly.
That was one of the reasons why, like, when I went, I mean, my first year was 2009, my freshman year, and so, but my mom was my grandma worked there at the university.
Do you know what he's talking about? It says, didn't the Bears do summer camp there?
Yeah, they did. So
they did.
Yeah, I worked. Me and my wife worked at the summer camp for a few years.
That's pretty wild.
I worked security even, so I got to meet like Jay Cutler and get his autograph and all the players and everything. Like,
so you're a Bears fan
for security? Yeah, I'm a Bears fan. Yeah.
Well, we found a disagreement here. We found I have to root for my hometown Lions here. Okay, I know they're terrible, but.
Well, you know our pain now when I have to like hide that I'm a Bears fan when I go to Wisconsin. Like, we're like distributing in Green Bay and stuff. Like, I can't say I'm a Bears fan when I'm up there. But
did you make it out to the Pope Leo Mass then?
No, I did have an opportunity to go. Someone said, I have tickets. Would you like to go? I did not, just because I thought that there might be a little bit of craziness with Cardinal Supich celebrating the Mass. I was like, I don't want to be upset the whole time. So I was like, I'm just gonna like stay away. And so, but it did look like a really cool event. So for all the people that went there, I'm sure they had a great time. And I was like, man, this is kind of killing me. It's like kind of a really cool historical event. I'd love to go, but I ended up hanging back.
At least he's not from LA, because the Dodgers are horrible.
Yeah.
Like just the fact that they had, what was it? The drag queens of perpetual, whatever the heck it was.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
The ones that Strickland did a rosary outside their stadium for.
Yeah. That was crazy.
So at least the White Sox are like kind of cool now because they got the Pope.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like they're cool. I could still get my time out of purgatory watching them and being associated somehow as a fan.
Something like that.
Relive the glory days in my head of 2005 when I was like really paying attention to baseball when they won the World Series. So I'll just keep that in my mind forever.
Yeah, like imagine one day Pope Leo's like watching the White Sox, indulgence.
Yeah. And I just like, he might as well, like it would be great, if he gave the indulgence, like not because I'm a White Sox fan, because it is a real penance for you to watch the White Sox.
No, the real penance is watching Detroit Lions. That is the real penance. I mean, my goodness, so close and yet so far.
So yeah, so close. Well, speaking of close, to answer your question about college.
Okay.
I was close enough to the college. It's only like a 30-minute drive. And so I actually stayed at home like all 4 years. I was a commuter student.
That's what I did for college too. I was about a 45-minute drive to where I went.
Yeah. It was great. I mean, obviously it's not that I got away from like all this partying that I could have done. You can't drink, which is kind of funny. You can't drink at that. You have to like sign a pledge that you will not drink if you're an employee.
Really?
Like that. Yeah, there's no dancing at the school, and there's
no dancing.
No dancing.
None?
No. Like it's formally on the books still. I mean that they enforce it, not really, but you know, it's like, okay, what type of dancing? Like they're
Is
not
it-
gonna have
this
like a
is this
ball
is
or
the
anything.
Nazarene law essentially.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Well, I mean, okay.
So none of that, and then no alcohol. So I do know some crazy things that happen with alcohol there, but
All right.
not formally. Like you would get kicked out of the university or suspended. So, but anyway, I went there for 4 years, and it was a good experience, I would say. For
What degree
me,
did you end up getting out there?
yeah, I got a double major, business administration in management information systems.
Okay. That's definitely a degree that can do something, unlike half the degrees I saw when I went to college.
Well, you know, I did really think initially about history and political
Philosophy.
science.
Oh,
Well,
political science. Political
political
science is
science.
probably better than philosophy.
Yeah. Well, you know, and honestly now, like, you know, that I mean, I guess I'd rather read up on philosophy and theology than probably get the degree. But you know, same thing with history. It's like I thought about it for a while, and I was like, I love this, but I don't really want to teach in high school forever or at a university,
Right.
or, you know, be a researcher. I don't know if I see myself doing that. So, okay, I'm just going to get the business degree. So it ended up working out for me, but the experience was good. And, but I think maybe a question you might've had was, you know, what would I do it again? Or for kids, my own children recommend it. And I think the answer is it probably just totally depends on what they want to do. I mean, I
Yeah.
hope that there is a movement now, which I think is great, that, you know,
There's a lot of
advanced
Catholic trade
degrees.
schools coming up out of nowhere too. Which is
Yeah, like
good.
the one in Steubenville, I thought was like
Yeah.
really cool. Is it St. Joseph Worker College in
I'm
Steubenville?
definitely going to be encouraging my kids towards something like that. As long
Yeah.
as the jobs are there, right? Like, why would you go to a school where you're not going to find a job when you leave it?
Yeah,
That's kind
exactly.
of where I'm at. You know,
If the jobs aren't there, even in tech, like your job's gonna be gone, but by AI pretty soon. Who knows what's gonna happen in the next few years? You know, so
hey, listen,
watch
I'm an
out.
electrical engineer. AI ain't replacing me.
Yeah, that's true. Well, now I know who else I can bug for electrical work. I had my cousin is electrical engineer, and he came over and helped me with electrical work the last month or so. So now I know, Chris. And next time you're in Chicago or something for Mass at St. John campus, I'm going to give you a call and you can come on down.
The last time I
yeah,
went to Chicago, I thought I was going to get mugged by a homeless guy that was 7 foot tall.
oh,
I mean, he was super tall, and he was just hanging out outside. I was like, "Hey, man!" He's like, "I'm homeless," and I was like, "Here's $1. Please don't jump me." It's like,
he must have got cut from the Bulls or something.
I don't know, but he had to be 7 foot tall. I mean, he was huge.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, this guy is the biggest homeless man I've ever seen in my life. Like tall, not like he wasn't like obese or anything.
Yeah. Man.
Anyway,
incredible.
I used to have a good reason to go out that way because my aunt used to be at a Newman Center near Chicago. Let's put it that way. She used to work for one of those. So anyway, that's neither here nor there, but she used to have a house out there. And so we visited her once or twice while she was out there. And then we went to Chicago to see like there's like 3 museums basically all next to each other.
Yep.
Natural history and like 2 other ones. I can't remember what the other 2 are called. There's there's an aquarium. That's right.
Shed.
Yeah, it was Shed and the Natural History
Museum.
Museum. Those are the 2 we went to.
And did you go to the Science and Industry?
Maybe.
It's a little bit further away, but yeah, I mean they're kind of all close.
My biggest complaint about Chicago is there's no Coney Islands. Like we went to like some place that served breakfast, but it was like some hipster joint. It was like Coney Island is like breakfast. What the heck is this? Like nobody serves actual real breakfast in Chicago. That's what we learned.
Well, you know, it depends on what part of the city you're in, right? Because I think if you get it like, yeah, but yeah, I mean, if you're kind of like downtown by the lakefront, I can see that being.
Do you know what I mean by Coney Island? Because that's kind of more of a Michigan, Ohio thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know like
it's like a diner. It's like your standard like breakfast, lunch, dinner diner.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so like they've got like, you know, your eggs and whatever breakfast is like $5. It used to be like $2.50. Then it was like $5 during COVID. Now it's like $12 because eggs aren't cheap anymore, allegedly.
Yeah.
But anyway, so like that, when I think of Coney Island, I'm thinking like cheap breakfast with eggs, some kind of a meat on your plate, and yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, downtown by the lake, you're not going to find that.
no,
I thought you meant like
there was
the Coney
nothing.
Island, and I
No,
was
no,
like,
no,
well, we don't really exactly have like Coney Island like New York or anything, but
no. Michigan's got like a ton of places that are called Coney Island.
Okay.
And even if you go down to Ohio, you'll find some places that are like Coney Island adjacent. But Michigan has a ton of them.
Okay.
Yeah, just like a ton, like absolute ton of Coney Islands. And they are the cheapest breakfast, and the like, if you're looking for something greasy and cheap, that's where you're going.
Nice. Now I'm gonna have to know. Like now I know about Michigan. Michigan's I funny enough, I went to Michigan for the first time last year, which is kind of insane.
Where'd you go?
We went for just a family vacation at a lake house. It was a little bit north of Grand Rapids. Now I'm forgetting the city.
Was it Gaylord?
No.
Okay, because Gaylord's a place a lot of people like to go because you got like beaches and like kayaking and biking and.
Yeah, it's let's see if I can find it.
Ludington. No, Ludington's a little further than that. Never mind.
Like is kind of by
Muskegon.
Yeah, it's a little north of Muskegon.
What was the attraction?
We just want to get in the lake. We wanted to like have a family vacation on Lake Michigan.
Michigan's got a ton of like lake property. It's funny because like everybody wants to go to the beach in like California or Myrtle Beach but if you want to go in the summer, Michigan's going to be cooler and cheaper. And there's no sharks.
There's no sharks. Exactly. It's like, it's so great. You're right. I don't know what the attraction is. Like, I want to go to like, I don't know, Florida. I mean, I get the attraction, but like, I want to go to
Florida's fun. My grandpa has a place down there, so we go down there every once in a while.
Yeah. Well, and I should rephrase that. Like just I get the attraction. And it'd be fun, but it's like, you don't need to worry about any, like, it's not like too hot where like, by the afternoon in summer, you have to get off the beach because it's unbearable, or any of these other creatures they have to worry about in the water. It's like, it's crystal clear. It's nice. It's not too hot.
Yep.
Just great. So I'd say, if anyone can go to the Great Lakes, Lake Michigan's great. Do it. It was a great time.
Do you know where my wife and I went for our honeymoon? We
Lake
did.
Michigan?
Actually, no. We went to Mackinac City.
Okay.
And then Mackinac Island for like 2 days. Mackinac Island is great. But make sure you know where you're staying on Mackinac Island, because that was a mistake I made. I didn't Google it right. I thought it said you're 2 minutes from town. No. We were 2 miles from town.
Oh,
so, like, we're on the other side of the island where nobody's at, and I'm like, what the heck is? Anyways, that's a whole different ball game. But Mackinac Island's great. Then you go to the Upper Peninsula, and we went to a place called it's called Paradise.
Okay,
and it is literally like paradise, unless you're in mosquito season, and then it's horrible. But no, Paradise is great. And then there's a place called Pictured Rocks. If you ever want to go and see something like majestic in nature, Pictured Rocks is where it's at. It's like just you're looking, well, depending on which way you're going, but we were going north. So Pictured Rocks was on my right, which would have been east of where we were on kayaks. And it's like you see these little trickles of copper coming through the rocks. And it is one of the most beautiful, like just weird, like Pictured Rocks is the best way to describe it. That is literally what it is. But if you do tandem kayaking, just keep in mind, if you're a lot larger than your wife, like I am, your wife's paddling is not going to do anything for the kayak. Just nothing. So like she could just sit there, like she's holding her paddles like this. Meanwhile, I'm like, anyway.
So worse than like a tandem bike, because I got a tandem bike. We haven't broken out for a few years.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it sounds familiar.
Yeah, I mean, at any point in my entire marriage, I've probably been at least 1.5 to 2 times the weight of my wife. So like, she just, it is what it is. I just
Yeah.
know that like strength wise and weight wise, if we're in a kayak this tandem, her pushes aren't going to do much. Like, it's just, it is what it is.
Well, I will be prepped then for my my trip to the UP.
You should definitely go. I like the UP. There's some cool places that are Catholic up there too, by the way.
Okay.
There's a like in the woods retreat center thing. And if you're interested in something like that, let me know. I'll send you a link to it. But it's kind of off the beaten path. Not a lot of people know about it. It's really cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds phenomenal. Yeah, it'd be great to get up that way at some point and see it. I mean, especially during the summer months. I don't know so much about the winter.
Yeah, I wouldn't go during the winter. No way.
So I mean, from what I've experienced of Michigan, it's really beautiful. And
Well, if you want to lose a cell phone connection and get closer to God with prayer, definitely wilderness of Michigan, the Upper Peninsula. That's the place to be.
All right.
And actually, the priest that baptized me, he's an exorcist, and he lives up there now.
Okay.
So I hopefully one of these days I'll find a way to interview him, because I think that would be a cool interview.
That'd be a phenomenal interview, especially if you had some. I'm sure you get him to say some insights, or
I hope so. He's kind of started like his own religious order up there. I'm not sure what their status is, but without knowing the status, I'm not going to mention it.
Sure.
It was approved by Cardinal Maida, however you pronounce that guy's name. He used to be the Archbishop of Detroit at one point. And he's famous because he's got a letter that's still on the website that basically says the SSPX is not in communion with Detroit.
Oh,
that's the basis of the letter. It's still on the website somewhere. I found it the other day, and I was like, man, they should probably update this, because even Pope Francis gave them like the ability to do confession and weddings, and it's like, you might want to update that.
That's just one of those things. Like, I wish would just get resolved for everyone involved. It's just like these really, and to be fair, I mean, I don't have anything personally against the SSPX, and I mean, I have.
Then you guys could launch your French beer, the Lefebvre beer.
Yeah,
Lefebvre lager.
There you go. Then we could do it, right?
Like, yeah, if he ever gets like not vindicated, but if they ever sort that all out and they decide he's part of the church again, you should definitely have a Lefebvre lager. That would be something.
There you go. Then I wouldn't have all the normies upset at me for having a Lefebvre beer or anything. It'd be socially acceptable in Catholic, mainstream Catholic circles. We have in the Lefebvre beer. But yeah, hopefully that all gets sorted out. And I think there's a lot of what I find problematic aspects of the Francis pontificate, but I mean that was at least one of the.
He was the first pope. He was the first pope since JP2 basically excommunicated the whole order that actually gave them back faculties, like officially gave them faculties. Right. Because before that, it was like on a bishop per bishop basis. But when a pope says they got these two faculties, like no bishop's going to be like, nah, I don't think so.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's very important. And, at the very least for, and I know a lot of people that go there would say, well, that didn't matter because there's extraordinary jurisdiction anyway. Yeah. But I mean, at the very least, like people have peace of mind,
right?
They'll know that, I'm not have that swirling in the back of my head as a question on things. So that's good. I'm glad that, and hopefully that the whole situation could be resolved. And
I mean, it's mostly resolved. They brought all the bishops that Lefebvre ordained back into communion with the church, except for was it Williamson or whatever one broke away and formed the SSPV. I think he's the only one that was not like canonically brought back into the church.
Yeah, he's the only one. I
thought it was Williamson, but I could be wrong about that.
No, I think you're right. It was Williamson.
Or no, Sanborn. Williamson was, and then he got excommunicated for a different reason, or he got laicized. Something happened to Williamson before he died. I know that.
Yeah,
But it was Sanborn. Donald Sanborn was the one that never made it back in. That's right.
Yeah, and he's I think Sanborn has said a
yeah, he's a sedevacantist at this point.
Yeah.
I'm 90% sure. So if I'm wrong, somebody comment below and tell me why I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure that dude. His reverence is sedevacantist.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and I know Williamson was. I mean, he had a splinter group off the SSPX.
He wanted to still be in communion with Rome. Like, so William, he was kind of in that weird spot where it was like the recognize and resist movement. I believe he was part of that.
Yeah, and I would say probably. I mean, I would characterize all the SSPX as recognize and resist. I mean, in a significant part.
I mean, there's some newer SSPX priests that aren't quite that. Like, they're more like the recognize. I mean, yes, I guess you're kind of resisting because you're still doing the TLM. But if that's the case, then so are the FSSP, the ICKSP. If you want to, so the SSPX are definitely not any different than them. Other than the weird canonical status.
It's really the canonical status. Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how you define it, right?
Yeah,
but it would be like, I don't know.
Actually, if I had to categorize it now, I'd be like, well, guys, the ICKSP is trying to do the pre-55 liturgy, so I would say they're more resistive than the SSPX at this point, who are doing the 62. you know what I mean?
Yeah, like and I mean, I guess that's where it comes in, right? Where it's like the resistance part is more. It may not be like, hey, we're rejecting all the authority or something, but it might be like, hey, I don't know, Pope Francis had a certain encyclical that had a crazy sentence in it, so we're going to ignore that. I mean, he's still the Pope, but we're just going to, we're not going to do the
if it doesn't carry magisterial authority, you don't necessarily have to follow it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like,
for example, like he said, it would be good for Catholics to get a certain jab in 2020. But that's not like something you had to follow. It's like that was like a suggestion, not a teaching. So anybody that decided they wanted to or didn't want to, it was totally a personal choice at the end of the day.
Right.
So that's not a magic. On the other hand, there are like authority-driven decisions made by a pope. Like, for example, the motu proprios, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And those things have to be followed to whatever extent they're expected to be followed.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example, which I think was very like mainstream, kind of rejected by a lot of bishops. I mean, recently, I think is a good example of kind of the resist part. So like fiducia supplicans.
Oh, yes.
Right. So you had like a lot of African bishops say, listen,
pretty much the whole continent of Africa said, nope.
Right. Like, okay, we're not going to do it. Right.
Right.
So I think that would be a good example of like recognize and resist. I know that probably almost none of those bishops would see themselves as that.
No,
but I think that would be a good example of, okay, here's a document where they were like, yeah, there's some pretty significant problems that we see with this, so we're gonna withhold from like performing these kind of blessings.
Right.
So yeah.
It is kind of a strange, because like, for example, the papal office, like everybody I think knows, even like you look at the conclave, secular news outlets paused and said, we're going to watch this thing going on in Rome. Everybody knows the Catholic Church is objectively like true, I think, to a degree, like depending on where you're at. But it's not until the conclave that everybody realized, like, oh my gosh, like this is like the event. This is the thing that everybody should be paying attention to. And like the news cycle just stopped. It was clear, like, because I didn't pay attention. I was not paying attention when Pope Francis was elected. And I can't tell you what was going on when Benedict was elected either. But everybody I know stopped and waited to see what was going to come out of that conclave for Pope Leo. That was pretty cool. Like, that was one of the coolest things I've seen in secular media in a long time.
Yeah, and I think it went right to the point that you're making, which is, the Catholic Church is the main player.
It
And
is,
whether or
yeah.
not people want to admit that or grudgingly admit that, I mean, I think that that's the truth of the matter. And so, yeah, I mean, it commands attention one way or the other, whether you believe it or not, or believe in the papacy. Yeah, it's obviously it's very important for the world. So, yeah, it was good to see that, and I've got I've got hope. I know that there's a lot of there are still some more traditionally minded people that are kind of down on Pope Leo the 14th or whatever, like everything's not fixed right away, or oh, there's this decision or that decision, and that's a foreshadowing all these bad things. I think
I'm just giving him, I'm like,
yeah,
he's the Pope, so I respect his office, and he needs time. Like he's
yes,
still acclimating to. Like, imagine like tomorrow you're the Pope. Like it sounds great. You're gonna rip up Traditionis Custodes. Like that sounds awesome. Like let's do it. But really, is that a good idea to do it on day one when you're just becoming the Pope? Probably not. Probably not the best option, because then you're ripping up the previous Pope's legacy, just flat out. And you're basically saying like not that I'm saying that some people don't like fantasize about these kinds of things, but
right.
I don't think that's probably a good idea if you're trying to promote the continuation of the papacy, to just rip up the documents of your predecessor, because that sets the trend for everybody in the future to be like, well, this guy sucks. Rip. You know what I mean? Like, so I think he's got to do it more judiciously. It's going to take a little bit of time, and we'll just see what he does. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
would love it if he
agree.
did rip up Traditionis Custodes. I'm totally good with that, for the record.
Yeah,
but I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, and I think that it was pretty clear, pretty apparent that obviously, and people were very surprised by it, that Pope Francis basically did that to Summorum Pontificum, right?
Yeah,
Did a total 180, and then people are like, what? Like, this usually doesn't happen. So
Right.
I agree that it's probably not going to be as apparent. I think Pope Leo will do something, but I think it's going to be probably on the enforcement end. It's going to start with, hey, we're not going to enforce it as much.
Or he's going to return the powers to the bishops.
Yeah, and I think that's probably even more likely.
Sucks for Detroit, but
it does suck for Detroit, sucks for Charlotte, Chicago.
But that's not like the long term. Like if the bishops have the choice, eventually the generation that likes tradition will be in charge. It's going to take a while, but eventually it will happen.
Yeah.
And so I think we're in good hands long term. Short term, not so much. Long term,
not so much. Yeah, and I think even in Traditionis Custodes, even though I know it was kind of like a bait and switch purposeful thing that Pope Francis put in there, which was, we're really just returning power to the bishops, which wasn't true, right? Because
no, it's not true.
Then
he immediately was like, wait a second.
Well, wait a second. We're putting all these other rules on. And by the way, the dicastery, you have to apply to Rome for exemption.
Yeah, so the bishops, we're giving power to the bishops to ask Rome for permission.
Right.
Wait a second.
So it could be very easy even for Pope Leo to say, oh, well, I'm just doing what Pope Francis said, and I'm just returning power to the bishops. It just says right here in Traditionis.
He's like, I don't want to make the decision for every random diocese out there.
That would be the easiest way out, I think. And that's probably, like you said, and I even had like a post on X like right after it came out where I pretty much said the same thing. I think it's going to be a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I think it's when he does,
or October, or maybe October this year.
Well, maybe October. I know it's kind of what the Charlotte diocese
I really
is
hope.
like. I hope so. I hope it's not a few years, but I could easily, like you said, it's a huge bureaucracy they're coming into. It's kind of like being upset with someone like Trump on the first day in office and being like, hey, you didn't overturn all these things that the prior administration or administrations for decades have done.
I think from an executive order standpoint, he did everything he could right at the get-go. Yeah, but overall, I am not like extremely impressed, but I am somewhat impressed.
Yeah, for Trump, I was very impressed the first month.
His executive orders looked great. I was watching them coming out, and I was like, yes, give me more, and then it's like, and then the longer it's gone on, I'm like, yeah, okay, well, there's only so much he can do.
Yeah, there's only so much he can do without Congress, so he went about as far as he could.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
And I feel like that's with the College of Bishops and everything else. There's only so much Pope Leo can do right out the gate.
Yeah, without burning it down, and I think he just wants to.
Well, if you burn it down, like the Novus Ordo crowd's gonna be like, "What the heck?" You don't want to like have the Novus Ordo crowd holding the bag. They're like, "Wait a second, what's going on here?"
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that there's a way to do it where you've got. I mean, it's just like any good politician, right? You have to approach this situation with some tact and
and I think Pope Leo's got a lot of tact. We'll see what that tact leads to, but I think he's got a lot of it.
I think so, and he's also got a lot of fatherliness. Let me put it that way. Like you don't get the same feeling.
The aura.
He's got the aura. Yeah, he's got the aura. He's letting himself be conformed to the office, which I think Pope Francis famously went the opposite. Right, went the opposite direction. It came across very much so as performative humility with Pope Francis and a lot of the things he did. Whereas I think
it's the opposite of Saint Francis, who was not performative in any way, shape, or form. Like that was his actual modus operandi.
Yes, exactly. It's at a certain point, and this goes for monarchs too, right? Yeah. I mean, I think like the Crown series on Netflix, it gives like a really good insight into this. If anyone's,
I did like season 1 and 2. I don't think I got past 2 though.
Okay, I mean, it's good. The first few seasons are the best, but I think it like really encapsulates like, a person conforming themselves to the office, and like there's all these responsibilities that you have, and like, almost like out of humility and duty, you become one with the office. And it's not like a pride thing, like, oh, I'm wearing these robes or this crown or this whatever, letting people kiss my ring because it's for me and my glory, but because I represent something much greater. And actually, this is kind of a pain, but and maybe even humiliating for me to like all day long, like have my ring kissed or whatever. This is annoying. But like, okay, but allowing that to happen because you representing something more than yourself.
Right.
And so I'm glad that Pope Leo apparently sees that. He's brought a lot back those traditions from, Benedict XVI or JP2.
I've been very impressed with Pope Leo so far.
Yeah.
Especially like how well he sings Latin office and everything else. Like he is like, as far as Latin goes, he's right there.
Yeah, great Latin, great English too, by the way, for Pope. Great Midwestern accent, Chicago accent. But yeah, he's also got, like, even the other day, he processed, what was it, from St. John Lateran to St. Mary Major.
And he did it on foot.
On foot, which is great. I mean, like, really in a contradiction even to, speaking of our local clerics, even like, for example, when the National Eucharistic Congress was going on in Indianapolis last year, when they had all the pilgrimages from different parts of the United States come in, Cardinal Supich wouldn't let it go through Chicago. He wouldn't let
he didn't let it go through Chicago.
Like he wouldn't let it process. Like he was like, you're not processing through
really?
Through the city. Like he explicitly forbade it.
That's wild. I didn't know that. Because like even the new Archbishop of Detroit, he walked the Eucharist. I don't know what his path was, but I saw pictures. He was walking it with the monstrance and everything.
Yeah. Well,
I have to say, from the perspective of like him limiting the Latin Mass, not impressed at all. But like the respect he shows to the Eucharist and stuff, like Weisenberger, he's got that at least. It's clear that he has respect for a liturgy. It's just not the traditional liturgy. So I'll give him that credit at least.
At least there's that. At least there's that.
He's like he respects the office that he has in his own way.
Yeah. It's good though that Pope Leo he sees that, in kind of a contradiction to maybe some others who don't like the pomp, or don't like the reverence for the Eucharist and processions. Yeah, that was really great. I really loved seeing that the other day.
That was cool.
Great seeing like a younger, energetic Pope. We haven't really had that since JP2, it seems like. And
And he was Pope for a
That's great.
long time, like what, 20 some odd years?
20 plus
He was
years.
like the third or fourth longest reigning Pope of all time.
Yeah, I know, like him, but Pope Leo the 13th, Pius the 9th. I know there's a few that are up like.
Well, the longest reigning Pope, according to history, is Pope Peter.
Oh, really?
Yes, he had like 35-ish or something. Yeah, don't quote me on it, but it was over 30 years, and then all the popes after that, I think, were 30 or less.
There you go. God had to set the limit, you know, like you can't get past 35. You can't be better than the first pope. So we're gonna cut you off there.
kind of like the setting the stage with George Washington got 2 terms, but you know, FDR we'll ignore him. Don't worry about him having 4 terms. But anyway,
exactly.
Have you ever heard the theory that this has nothing to do with this podcast, but there's a theory out there that a Jesuit converted George Washington on his deathbed?
I've heard the theory. Yes.
There's very little evidence to prove it, so we're not going to delve down that path. But imagine the first president of a Protestant nation was converted on his deathbed. I mean, we're talking like that'd be the second Constantine event, essentially.
Yeah, it would be absolutely
if it was
incredible. True. I mean, if it's true, like hopefully, assuming we get to heaven, it'd be great to have that like revealed. Hopefully we meet him, right?
He'd be like, yeah, man, that totally happened.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Oh man. Oh. All right, let me think if there's any other questions I can ask you about beer since we're here. Is this the highest percentage of the beers you guys make, the DSERA?
Yeah. It is the 10.1% ABV for DSERA, our Imperial Stout. That's definitely the highest.
Because that's a good tasting stout. Like, for example, I don't like any pale ales, but I liked your guys's. That was really good.
Well, I'm glad that you like it. And hopefully my grandfather, my father's father, Jeff's father, Jerry, our quartermaster Jerry Beer,
right?
He would approve because he was a Busch Light man, and he when he was
Busch
alive,
Light, huh?
Yeah, he loved his Busch Light, but he would not when he was alive. He wouldn't drink our homebrewed stuff because it was too heavy for his taste. So that's why, like after he passed on, we said, well, let's try and make something that he would actually enjoy. And so we came up with something like basically as light as you get, which is a blonde ale on the spectrum of craft beer. So, I mean, it still is like way better than like Busch Light, but it's nice, like summer beer, lawnmower beer, grilling. So that's how we put like all those things on the side of the can too, right? Where it's like, when was Grandpa having a beer? After lawn mowing, grilling, out in the garage, or like perfect,
or during lawn mowing too,
or during lawn mowing. We don't know. So yeah, so that's why we got on the side of the can. So yeah, it's actually pretty good. I'm not like a light beer guy myself, but I think in the proper context, and like one of those contexts that I just mentioned, perfect beer.
As far as like IPAs though, I've only ever had 2 that I ever liked, and it was your guys's was very good, and the other one was Sierra Nevada.
Oh, okay.
That's the only one. I had that with a buddy of mine named Mark. I'm not gonna say his last name because I don't know if he wants me to say that. Anyway, he had that, and I was like, "Well, dude, I hate IPAs." He's like, "Well, try this one." I was like, "All right, fine." So I tried it, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty good." And then your guys's obviously was also very good.
Yeah, I wonder with this.
I just don't like very many IPAs. Like they're a lot more bitter, and I'm just not a huge fan. But this stout, this is good. So if anybody's looking for a beer where you can have like 2 or 3 and like feel really good afterwards, this is one of them.
Yeah, the 10%, you definitely feel good. Ready for a nap. That's usually me after I have one. That's why I was thinking.
I'm going to bed after this podcast.
Well, that's what I thought. Like after the podcast, I was like, well, if I have one of these, I'd probably be, I don't know, I might be falling asleep during the project or during the podcast. So I don't know.
Well, for the record, 2 of these, I'm ready for bed.
Yeah. I would be if I were you.
Oh man. I'm not gonna lie. That's probably the highest That's probably one of the highest percentages for a beer I've had in a long time, actually. Most of them are like between 5 and maybe 7%.
Yeah, exactly. It's usually the kind of the sweet spot for a lot of beers.
10%.
But certainly,
I did not read that going into this podcast. That's
so
funny.
anything imperial is imperial really means is from an alcohol percentage standpoint. So it's 8% or
Okay.
above. So if you see anything with imperial in the name, it should be 8% or more.
Luckily, I'm not a lightweight, or we'd be having a much more ridiculous podcast than we're having now.
All right, well, have another, Chris.
It's too late. I had the third one yesterday.
All right. Oh no,
that was a different day. Okay, so of the 4 that you guys make, my favorite was probably either the Cristeros or the Captain Jerry.
Quartermaster Jerry.
A quarter. Sorry. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The blonde ale. That was good.
Yeah, they're both
Quartermaster. Yeah, I'm sorry. My brain was saying Captain because like I know a ton of like Captain and Coke drinkers in my life.
Yep.
And so my brain goes to Captain and Coke. But yeah, exactly. So those 2 are my favorites.
And yeah, nice. Both of them nice, easy drinking. I mean, certainly the Cristeros has a little bit more character to it, a little bit heavier, a little bit maltier. But yeah, both are like good, solid, like, hey, I'm going to have something with a meal. Certainly the DS area is more of, I like to have it like if it's like at night or something, or even for like a conversation, it's great for contemplation and whatnot. But yeah, both Cristeros and Quartermaster Jerry, great, daily drinkers.
Yeah, I did see that. I don't know if you were watching it or not, but there's that Uncatechized Catholic channel. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Desiree.
Yep.
She said you obviously named it after her, the Diaz Irae.
Diaz Irae, yeah.
Shout out to Uncatechized Catholic. I think she got a new channel name now, but I saw that video and I was like, good on you for picking up on that.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I sent her some stuff over because she's like, oh, it's like it's named after me. Like now you have to send me some stuff. I was like, okay, all right. Not a problem, Desiree. I'll get you some stuff.
All right. So we are coming up on about the 2-hour mark here. And for those in Eastern Standard Time, it's like midnight right now. Is there anything that you have questions for me or anything you want to talk about at the end of this podcast? Anything we didn't cover already?
For me, at least me, unless we got anyone in the audience that has any questions. Yeah, I think we covered a lot of ground.
We did.
Wide-ranging conversation. Yeah, I didn't have any other particular topics I felt like, oh yeah, we totally missed out that we need to cover.
Well, I have to say, I do appreciate that there is even if it's not available near my neighborhood right now, there's a Catholic beer company out there that is holding to the values of Catholicism and the faith, because the only way we change the culture is if we actually are in it in some way, shape, or form, right?
Right.
So I appreciate what you guys are doing. I appreciate how good it is, because, it's one thing to have Catholics in business. It's another thing to have Catholics in business who are good at that business. So thank you.
There's some truth to that. Yeah. No, you're welcome. Yeah. And it's just one of those things where you even with the label, like, because Chris does a phenomenal job. If you have the label, see like, oh, that looks like a really awesome artwork, and then the beer lets you down. It's like, oh man,
the labels have to be
great. It's got to be the whole package, right? And so I think we did a great job with that. Not to be prideful, I just think it all like fit together well. It has a whole everything came together. It works. It's a good product. So you're right. I mean, it's one thing to say, yeah, I'm Catholic and I make something, buy stuff from me, but it's like, okay, yeah, is it good? Am I getting value out of this as a consumer?
Yeah.
And I think the answer to that is yes in this case. And so, yeah, hopefully we have continue to have a lot more Catholic entrepreneurs out there. doing things, making things for the great glory of God in their own field, whatever their product is, because we need them out there. That's for sure. We need people to be more, again, even if it's not vocal in a way that we're vocal, like this is a little bit more in your face. I think a lot of people would be comfortable doing for their whatever their brand is or their profession, but just living out your faith and being a great representative, for the church in whatever your profession is. I think that's key.
Absolutely. I'm not going to say which business it is, but a friend of mine has lots of Catholic bumper stickers on their work vehicles. So if I interview him, we'll talk about that. I'm hoping to get him on here in the next couple of weeks.
That'd be awesome.
But seriously, if you guys are Catholic, you got a business, let's be vocal about it. I think that's a great thing. And shout out to you guys. Like, you guys are probably, if you guys are in this area, I'm never buying any other beer but Tridentine beer ever again. That'll be the only beer at my house, unless my wife likes something specific. Then she can have her thing. But for me, it'll be all Tridentine beer, and that'll be it. So anyway.
All right. I'll look forward to it. On to Michigan, Chris, and hopefully we can make it a reality.
All right. Well, on that note, this has been the latest episode of Crash Canon. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And if you want to see more of it, subscribe, like, whatever. It's YouTube. Figure it out. And we'll see you on the next one. So bye, guys. Thank you for coming on, Trevor. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Chris.